Let's begin with our prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Ramustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanasute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Karma Yoga chapter 5 today, action in Krishna consciousness. Before we begin, let's pay our obeisances to Shri Shri Radha Govinda. Okay, so here we have the summary of chapter 4. In section 1, we learn knowledge about Krishna is transcendental. We learned the transcendental knowledge. Krishna spoke about himself. Then section 2, Krishna is the goal of all paths and the creator of Varnashrama system. And section 3 was about Karma Yoga. Section 4 was about sacrifices lead to transcendental knowledge. Then summary of transcendental knowledge. So what did we learn in chapter 4? Knowing the divine nature of Lord Krishna's appearance gives us liberation. One who understands that will get liberated. He'll get liberation. So that's what we learned. And then Krishna stresses the importance of both working in devotion and inaction in knowledge. And also he said, a person who is in knowledge, who has jnana, is not bound to reactions of his work, of the duties. So a person who has renounced the fruit of actions, who is in transcendental knowledge, he has no doubts, his doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge and he's situated firmly in the self, right? That's what we learned. So he's not bound by the reactions of his works. No sinful reactions for a person who works in devotion. So that's what we learned. And in 4.42, he also said, Arjuna, you must get up and fight. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand up and fight. That's what he said. So doubts of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. And then, with that knowledge, you get up and perform your duty. That's what he told Arjuna. And now Arjuna is asking again, renunciation or action, karma sannyasa or karma yoga, what should I do? Okay, and Krishna also spoke about attaining peace through jnana. He said a person who is in perfect knowledge is actually very peaceful. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparam samatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim achirena adigacchati. He's saying Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. A person who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who has subdued his senses, his senses are under control, such a person will quickly attain supreme spiritual peace, transcendental peace. You can see Pandavas, they were always peaceful, whether they were in the forest or in the palace or wherever, they were totally dependent on Krishna. You can see them, they're so peaceful all the time. They were experiencing transcendental peace whenever Krishna was around. Always, they were so much dependent on him that they were fearless. So a Krishna conscious person utilizes everything in the Lord's service and he's free from dualities and he's free from all this fear and all. He is very peaceful. And what are we going to learn in this chapter? Section 1 talks about Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is easier than renouncing work. Section 2, how to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga. Section 3 is platform of knowledge, knowing the three doers. Section 4, liberation by focus on the super soul. Section 5, liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. The moment he mentions Ashtanga Yoga, that is towards the end of the chapter, Arjuna will ask, what is that now? So next chapter is about Ashtanga Yoga. He'll have some questions about Ashtanga Yoga, and Krishna is going to explain about Ashtanga Yoga. So section 6 is peace on the platform of liberation. So Nishkama Karma Yoga is better than Sakama Karma. Then one more thing we should remember is first 6 chapters are about Karma Yoga, and 7 to 12, these middle 6 chapters are about Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters talk about Jnana Yoga. But actually, it is about how to achieve Bhakti through Jnana. That's what we are going to learn. So first 6 chapters is like learning how to achieve Bhakti through Karma Yoga. Middle 6 is Bhakti itself. Very beautiful chapters. Last 6, how to achieve Bhakti through Jnana. So because the goal of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga, that is why. Okay. So Krishna is actually celebrated, his celebrated devotee is Arjuna. So he's actually discussing so much with Arjuna. So the conversation between them ultimately is going to be about Bhakti only. So that's what happens, right? People with whoever you see, anybody standing in a market, they'll be talking about something that is relevant to the market. So people who are standing in a school or some other building, they'll be talking something that is relevant to their consciousness. But here the conversation is between the Lord and his celebrated devotee. So the conversation is all about bhakti. Only at the end we understand that, and that's how we have to understand Bhagavad Gita. So, and Krishna also says both are equal, but Nishkama Karma Yoga is better and it is easier. And Nishkama Karma Yoga also frees us from bondage. So let's go ahead and learn. Nishkama Karma Yoga, easier than renouncing work. Arjuna again asks whether renouncing work is superior to working with detachment. Krishna replies, both are equal in the sense that both are means to the same goal. He emphasizes working with detachment as easier and superior. So text 1. Arjuna uvacha sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samsasi yachreya yatayor ekam tanme bruhi sunischitam. Arjuna said, oh Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? So, chapter 3, to a devotee who is on the platform of knowledge, there is no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his duties, because he is already on that platform where he is not entitled to all these Vedic injunctions and all. So he has no purpose to fulfill the discharge of his duties, and he has no reason not to perform also. So he is not dependent on anyone for his living. So that was very clear in chapter 3. Now Arjuna thinks sannyasa means being free from all kinds of activity. So he thinks work and renunciation, they are incompatible. So being in full knowledge means no action, inaction. But if you are performing work in devotional service, that means we are performing some work. So work is not stopped. Okay, in India, actually, what happens, you see all these sannyasis, we have a lot of respect for them. Anybody who has just renounced his activities and all his work and everything, who's just sitting somewhere in some mountain or somewhere in the Himalayas and performing all these austerities or whatever, we have so much respect for them, right? We think, oh, this is a sannyasi, he's given up all his activities. That's how we look at them. But actually here, Krishna is saying, that is not the right way. He does not encourage karma sannyasa. Even Shastras do not support that, because idle mind is very difficult to control. We have heard that, right? Idle mind is devil's workshop. So it is not recommended anywhere, especially for Kali Yuga. And such people who actually give up all the activities and go and do all these different kind of yogas and all this meditation and all. Some people even develop some bad habits. They cannot control their mind. Their heart is not pure. So they even sometimes take ganja and all this other intoxicants and all things like that happen. So in chapter 5, the Lord says very clearly that work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. And so, and devotional service is easier to perform also. It is transcendental in nature. It will free us from all sinful reactions. So in chapter 2, Arjuna gave many reasons. Two of those important reasons were compassion, for which Krishna spoke about jnana, and then sinful reactions. Krishna said buddhi yoga. So let's see the series of events that are leading to Arjuna's confusion. Arjuna is actually trying to avoid fighting, that's why all these questions. So he's saying, should I cease work altogether or work with full knowledge? So in chapter 2, Krishna explained the characteristics of the soul and its entanglement in the material body. How to get out of this material engagement by buddhi yoga. What is buddhi yoga? Devotional service. Working in Krishna consciousness. You must work for the satisfaction of the Lord only. That is buddhi yoga. He said, if you do that, you can, come out of this material entanglement. And in chapter 3, he said, a person who is on that platform of knowledge, who is completely in transcendental knowledge, he has no purpose to fulfill all his prescribed duties. So he doesn't have to do anything. And there is no reason not to perform also. That's what he said. And in chapter 4, the Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work, everything culminates in knowledge. So now Krishna is giving all this information, and Arjuna is like, okay, he's receiving all this information. He understands, what is buddhi yoga. He's hearing about buddhi yoga. He's hearing about sacrifices and everything. And then he says, all the sacrifices lead to knowledge. And the one who is in knowledge doesn't have to perform any activity. So he's like, okay, now in the end, at the end of chapter 4, he says, so now wake up and fight. Get up. Now being situated in perfect knowledge, Arjuna, get up and fight. So Arjuna understands that renunciation in knowledge involves giving up all kinds of work, which is performed by your senses. So that's what he understands. Let's see how Krishna clears his doubts. And there are some verses here, which are leading to Arjuna's confusion. We'll look at those. 3.17. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. And 3.18 is saying, a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So a person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully self-realized, who is fully confident of his eternal position, constitutional position, he knows his relationship with the Supreme, what is his relationship with the Lord. And such a person has no longer, he does not have any need to perform any duty. And for such a person, all the impiety within himself will also be cleansed, because he is in that complete knowledge. So when that clearing of consciousness happens, what happens is, it is like performing thousands of yajnas, lots and lots of yajnas. So because he's getting purified from inside. And this self-illumination also happens because of Lord's mercy only. It does not happen on its own. This is also because of Krishna's mercy. And such a person is not obligated to perform any, prescribed duties or anything that is mentioned in the Vedas, all the Vedic injunctions. He doesn't have to. So for such an elevated Krishna conscious person, what happens is, he will not be interested to perform any material activities also, because fruitive activities are, again, you do fruitive activities because you want to enjoy something. It is for your own sense gratification. You want to enjoy the fruits of your activity. But then for such a person, he knows all this is, material, and all these are material activities, and he's not interested. Especially, he won't be interested in material arrangements like, wine and women and all other infatuations and addictions. He won't be interested. He's very determined. So that's what happens to such a person. So here in 4.33, there is this verse. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. Again, renouncing just all the activities, just giving up everything and walking to the forest. That is just giving up your materials, that there is no spiritual growth happening there. After all, O son of Pratha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So the purpose of performing all the sacrifices is to reach the status of complete knowledge. But actually, knowledge alone is not enough. We can gain all the knowledge, like I'm not the body, I'm the soul, and then this is my relationship with the Lord. And you can gain all this knowledge, but this is not enough. This is not qualification to get to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. What we should do to become free from these material miseries and come out of this material creation, we must engage in the loving devotional service. That is very important. Unless and until some person does not engage himself in the transcendental service, knowledge remains knowledge and there is nothing happening. So the mystery behind all these activities, what is a mystery? The mystery is the sacrifice performed by the performer. The performer himself, it depends on his faith. So sacrifices depend on the faith of the performer. If they are simply performing sacrifice on just sacrificing material possessions without any knowledge, it is just material activity. Such a material activity will not have any spiritual benefit. So when a person has very, strong faith and he reaches that stage of transcendental knowledge, what happens is he's very advanced. So he's in real knowledge and he is culminating that God. All this knowledge actually takes him towards God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, and that is the highest stage of transcendental knowledge. If a person does not reach that stage, then everything is a waste of time. So based on the consciousness of the performer, whatever he's doing, the sacrifice is performing, it depends whether it is karma kanda or it is gnana kanda. Karma kanda means fruitive activities. If he is performing sacrifice because he wants to understand the absolute truth, in the pursuit of the absolute truth, he wants knowledge, that is gnana kanda. So it depends. So it is better when the end result is knowledge, not just giving up materials or just giving up all work and sitting in one corner. That is not going to get us anywhere. So he's saying Nishkama Karma Yoga is easier to perform, and that is the way to progress in your spiritual journey. So therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Okay. So Arjuna, actually, what's happened to him? He has understood. His understanding is such that working in full knowledge is non-reactive. That means it is equal to actually working in full knowledge is inaction, because you are not getting any reaction for the activity you are performing in the devotional service. So it is actually the same. But this instruction is not just for Arjuna, it is for all of us, because Krishna is stressing simultaneously, he's stressing on the importance of working in devotion, inaction in knowledge. So it is like you're performing the activity, but you're not gaining any reactions to it. So it is as good as not performing anything. In the sense, there is no reaction. That is akarma. So that is what Krishna is trying to get at. And Arjuna's understanding is that renunciation in knowledge means just stopping all kind of work. I'm just don't have to perform anything. Since I have all the knowledge and I know I'm the soul, so I don't have to perform anything for my senses. No sense activities required. That is what he is thinking. But as we know, in devotional service there is work, and we have to work for the Lord. So this is where it is leading to. So he'll understand what is perfect knowledge and how to go about his activities now. So again, just to make all these points clear, there are some charts and some slides. So chapter 2 spoke about Jnana, work through Buddhi Yoga. And then Arjuna became confused. Okay. Then he said renunciation or Nishkama Karma. What should I do? Then again, chapter 3, what should he do? He heard about karma through gnana, action in inaction, inaction in action. Then conclusion, glorifying transcendental knowledge. Then in the end, he said, stand and fight. So it's like, okay, again back to square one. Like, I have to understand this. So he's asking, now tell me, Krishna, what should I do? So chapter 5, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. All beings constantly are making plans for the future. Thoughts are manifested in actions. Repeated actions form habits. Habits make up our character. Character determines our destiny. How to take steps in the right direction is described in the 5th chapter. There are steps leading to further entanglement in worldly complexities. There are steps leading to a life of liberation, freedom, and tranquility and peace. So, what do we choose? Let's see. So, again, thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to habits. Habits lead to character. Character leads to destiny. You see how we are creating our own destiny. If you see that it starts at the thought level and then that becomes actions. Action, whatever we do repeatedly becomes, it's a habit, right? And then that forms our character. We become what we think, what we are doing all the time. That makes, what we are. And then that takes us to our destiny. And then we wonder, like, what happened? Why am I here? Who did this to me? Who is responsible? And we start blaming everyone. Whereas, we have a bigger role to play. We have, we are responsible for all this is what is happening. So Arjuna's misunderstanding. Devotional service better than dry mental speculation. This slide is also a summary. So in 2nd chapter, knowledge of soul was described by Krishna. Prescribed duty was explained, and entanglement of soul due to fruitive activities. Whatever we do for our senses, sense gratification, we will be stuck here only. Like that will have a reaction and again we'll take another body. It will go on and on and on. That is the entanglement of soul due to fruitive activities. Fruitive activities are done for our own sense gratification. So then he explained the process of disentanglement by devotional service. So if you are working for the Lord, there is no sinful reaction. And there is no reaction also. Actually, everything is done for the Lord. So he will assume all the reaction. And then in 3rd chapter, Krishna explained no duty for a person in knowledge. Chapter 4, text 33 explains all kinds of sacrificial work culminates in knowledge. See that all kinds of sacrificial work culminates in knowledge and there is no duty for a person in knowledge. So in the last verse of 4th chapter, Krishna again told Arjuna to get up and fight, thus confusing Arjuna, renounce or work. What should I do? Arjuna is still confused. Why? It is Krishna's plan to keep Arjuna confused. Why Krishna does so? For our benefit. To stress that work and renunciation are not opposed to each other. Rather, one must learn to work in a renounced spirit. Give up the fruits of the action, not the action itself. Arjuna thinks that jnana implies the renunciation of work and that knowledge. Arjuna thinks that jnana implies the renunciation of work and that knowledge and work, like light and darkness, are contradictory. Krishna emphasizes, however, that one in knowledge should also work. So Arjuna's confusion. You say work for sense activity must be given up. Fighting for a kingdom, even with knowledge of the soul, seems like activity of the senses to me. Therefore, it should be given up. If one works with devotion, then how is work stopped? It's not stopped, right? We are working, constantly working. People who are working for Krishna, who are in devotional service, they are actually very busy. They are actually working for Krishna. They're not stopping anything. And they're using all the materials in Krishna's service. So you speak in riddles, action in inaction, inaction in action. I'm confused. Which is better, work with devotion or renunciation of word? So 5.2, Sri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasa Karavubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Okay. So fruitive activities are activities done for sense gratification. They cause material bondage. Whatever work we do to satisfy our own senses will cause bondage. So we have to understand this much very clearly. So what do fruitive workers do? They, as you said, in the previous chapter we saw, they perform sacrifices. They want bodily comfort. They perform all these different kind of sacrifices because they want to go to a better place. They want to enjoy more. So it is like that. They transmigrate into different bodies and different planets and different places just so that, they can enjoy more and more. But wherever they go, they are going to, experience misery because this material creation is full of misery only. There is birth, death, old age, and disease. Even in the highest planets, wherever you go, there also you will experience envy and a lot of other problems. So this material creation is full of all that. So wherever they go, they cannot find uh, complete satisfaction. They will not be happy. So what is success and what is failure now? When it comes to our own everyday life, we define failure and success in different terms, right? We say different things, but in spirituality, what is failure? Failure is when we are not inquiring about our real identity. We're just stuck with the same thing, earn money, enjoy, and then I want to enjoy more. I want to become more and more comfortable. So I'll keep on earning, I'll keep on performing all these activities in sense gratification. That is considered normal, that is considered success. But failure is when we are not inquiring about a real identity. This is, I'm not even trying to find out who I am, why am I here, why am I even going through all these miseries, what is my purpose in life. So gnana, the knowledge that I am not this material body but spirit soul, that is the beginning of our spiritual life. But then that is not enough, as we know. So what we do to purify ourselves, we have to work for Krishna. We have to work on that platform. We should know that we cannot keep our mind quiet. Our mind will always keep thinking. Thinking, willing, feeling are all activities of the mind. So we have to work such that we must develop a love for devotional service to Vasudeva, to Krishna. Only then, there is success. But actually, we should understand that any activity we do in devotional service is not actually, it's done for the Lord. So it's not done on a fruitive platform. So that is very important to understand. So only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness, he'll be engaged in the welfare work for all the living entities because he is working such that he understands that his relationship with the Lord is, eternal. He's working for the Lord. Same way he understands that, the way he is going through this miserable life, all the other living entities are also going through the same miserable life. So what is the secret behind their misery? That they don't know who they are. They're suffering because of their own consciousness and other problems. So a person who helps to, change that person's consciousness, raise that person's consciousness to higher platform, that is real service. Because what happens in the society, people do welfare work. They provide meals. They provide, if they see somebody, they may provide some blanket, and that's nothing wrong with that. That is, so we have to have compassion for the living entities, for everyone. But what happens is there is no permanent solution there. So that there is no, it is all temporary, right? You can provide one meal, but tomorrow again that person is in misery. And then if the person, a person who is going through some kind of anxiety and other issues, how much ever you give, bodily comfort will not help him. He has to change from inside. So Krishna conscious person is in actually a state of divine love, and he acts from that platform. Okay. So because he's completely convinced that Krishna is the supreme, and our relationship with Krishna is such that we have to get back to his lotus feet, and he's trying to help everyone, trying to get to that understanding where they understand what is their conditional duty, what is their constitutional duty. By doing that, he's actually helping them raise their consciousness. And because all this temporary help given to the external body and the mind will not help a person forever. That is just, for the time being, you make that person feel better. But a man who is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna will not be anxious. He'll be happy. He'll be a liberated soul. So that is what is real happiness. That's when he'll feel that real, true happiness. Whereas in the material world, everything is temporary. You may feel, okay, I'll do this activity, I'll feel so happy. But then, it's just temporary. As soon as that activity is over, you're back to square one. And there's something called Samshan Vairagya and Falgu Vairagya and all. You must have heard these terminologies, right? Samshan Vairagya is a person who goes to somebody's funeral. For that time, for the time being, you may feel like, oh, this is life. That's it. It's so short. We should be happy in life. We should be nice to everyone. I make sure I live a nice life. All kind of thoughts may go on in his mind. But the moment he leaves that place, again, he is sucked into the material world, full of politics, envy, everything. So that is temporary. That also happens. And then Falgu Vairagya is one, a person, is trying to renounce something artificially. It's like Falgu is a river. It looks dry. All through the year, it looks dry. But if you scratch the surface, you'll see the water. There is water there. So it's like that. When a person who is purified from his heart, no matter what, he will be happy. He will not be disturbed. There is no duality, nothing, happiness, sadness, success, failure, whatever it is, he knows how to take it. He can face challenges easily. But a person who is artificially trying to control his mind or trying to give up just materials or, this artificial meditation and all, such a person is like Falgu Vairagya. Nothing, his heart is still the same. The moment the surface is scratched, all his anarthas are coming out. So Krishna is trying to get to that point where we should understand our relationship with him and try to live such that we're working for Krishna only, at least with that consciousness. Renunciation, Mayavadi sannyasis, work in devotion, Vaishnava sannyasis. Okay, so Mayavadi sannyasis need prior purification by prescribed duties. In the case of Vaishnava sannyasis, the process itself is purifying. Okay, simply jnana is insufficient for liberation. Knowledge alone will not help. Action is must. Must take action, must act in status of soul. And in Mayavadi sannyasis, among them, there is risk of falling down. But here, success is guaranteed, entrance into God's kingdom. And then Mayavada renunciation is incomplete renunciation. But working in devotion, Vaishnava sannyasis, complete renunciation to use everything for Krishna. That is real renunciation, because Krishna is the proprietor. He is the enjoyer. He owns everything. Then what are we going to renounce anyway? So it belongs to Krishna. So use it for Krishna. Find the root. Okay, we'll discuss this in the next few slides also. Find the root. In the sense, Sankhya philosophy is, they are trying to find the constitution of the soul and the existence of the soul and all. So it is like you see the tree, but you want to find out why the tree is standing there and what is behind all this, So you dig up the soil and get to the root and say, oh yeah, the roots exist. Because of the roots, the tree exists, that kind of a experimenting nature. But here we are just watering the root. We already know root exists. Krishna is real. So we just serve Krishna directly. But here they're trying to get to the speculation. They are speculating. They want to find the root first. Or then they start worshipping. Okay, now we know the root is there. Oh, this is the truth. So we have to start worshipping Vishnu. So that is their way of understanding things. The process is to detach from matter. Here, become attached to Krishna. There is no happiness. But devotional service brings a lot of happiness, because how long can you sit and study the scriptures trying to understand the absolute truth? But here we are actually serving the Lord. So many activities, so much fun. There is kirtan and everything. So it brings a lot of joy. And here in Mayavadi renunciation, senses are restricted, cannot relish transcendental devotional service. Senses are engaged, they perform multiple devotional activities. Then Mayavadi sannyasis take many, many births, but a Vaishnava sannyasi quickly achieves supreme personality of Godhead. Mayavadi sannyasi studies Sankhya philosophy, and here we study Srimad Bhagavatam. Vaishnavas study Srimad Bhagavatam. They study Sharirika Bhasya on Vedanta Sutra given by Shankaracharya. But Vaishnava sannyasis study Srimad Bhagavatam, which is natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. In Sharirika Bhasya, it is like they don't believe in the form of the Lord. Like Lord does not have a form. It's that kind of understanding. But we know through Bhagavatam, Krishna is, he has a beautiful form, Shama Sundara, and we can worship him. We can have, if we go back to Goloka Vrindavana, then we can really, like how all these gopis and all these cowherd boys were enjoying with him, all this real relationship, it's like you can relate to him, you can spend time with him. They are enjoying the pastimes with the Lord, right? So that's the kind of relationship we can have with the Lord. Okay, he has a beautiful form and he exists there eternally. And these Mayavadi sannyasis, they may fall down to philanthropic and altruistic activities. Yeah, they may be engaged in this. They fall down and again get back to altruistic activities. Again, that is temporary, as we saw. A person who is, has multiple engagements in devotional service according to Pancharatriki regulations. Means they follow this Pancharatrika regulations and serve the deity, dress the deity, offer bhoga, and there's a lot of they are following some rules. They always follow those things and they are actually very happy. They have so much to do. But here they may just fall down and again engage in materialistic activities like social service and all that. There's no eternal joy in such activities, because as we know, it's again, they're taking care of the external problem, not the internal problem. 5.3. Gneya sanitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna. Okay. So we live in a world of duality. We hate something, we desire something, we lament for something, we hanker for something, and some things make us happy, some things make us sad. This is going on constantly. But we have to advance beyond, above these dualities. Krishna is not saying a person who is not doing an activity is the best. He says not desiring the fruits of the activities. If you work for Krishna, then that is the benefit. Krishna will assume the reaction. So we don't have to worry about the reaction at all. So a person who is determined will not be determined in this path of devotional service, will not be affected by anything that happens. There is one little example to understand this. I'll tell you this example so that it will become a little clearer. There is this rich person who owns this factory and he has 3 sons. Okay, this story is just to understand what happens, how we are attached to materials. What happens? One of the sons will come and say, "Father, I want to sell this factory. We can make a lot of money. Let me sell this factory." Father says, no, no, let us not sell it. Then the second son also says, no, father, I think we should sell the factory. We can make some profit out of it because the factory is not doing that well anyway. We are not doing business properly. Then father says, no, let us see. He's not able to decide. Then what happens next day? The factory catches fire. The whole factory is burning. Then the sons come, they come running and they tell the father, father, the factory is burning, the whole factory is going to, be destroyed right now. What to do? And the father will cry, he'll start lamenting, he'll cry. He'll hold his chest and start crying. He'll like, oh no, because that is like loss, right? Huge loss. Everything they lost. He's very sad. Then the second son will say, no, no, father, don't worry. Yesterday, actually, I sold the factory to another person. So it is not ours now. Then this father is so happy right now. Just 10 seconds ago, he was crying, and now he's like, okay, fine. It is not my factory, so I'm okay now. I'm not at all worried anymore. As long as he thought that factory was his, he was crying. So the factory does not belong to him. He's so happy. But the third son will say, yes, yes, we did speak about selling it to some person, but that person has not paid any money yet. There are no documents. Nothing is concrete as of now. Again, the person, the father will again go into lamentation. He's like, oh no, now again it is our factory. Again, we are under loss and start crying. Then again, the older son will say, no, I have got the money. I got 50%. No matter what, that other person will give us the money tomorrow. So the factory is actually sold. So don't have to worry. Again, father is happy. It's like that. It's the same factory. Everything was same. Just that attachment, that proprietorship. This is mine. As long as it's mine, I'm lamenting. The moment he comes to know that the factory belonged to someone else, he was kind of better, was feeling better. So that's how we are, as long as we think, oh, this is mine, that is mine, there is some lamentation there. But if we come to know, like the whole creation, everything belongs to Krishna, I'm just here for a short while going through this cycle of birth and death. It's a very short life. I have to just do my best and make sure I get out of here in a proper spirit so that I go back to the Lord's abode. If people are working in this consciousness, things start changing in their life. They can see everything in a better way. It's like transcendental knowledge will give us different vision. Because with say for instance, you have this torch. The torch will just light a small area and you can see something there. But when the sun is there, you can actually see everything. So our whole outlook changes. If a person who has complete knowledge of all this and is self-realized, he can see things clearly. For him, the way he looks at things will be different from what a layman will be thinking about. So that's how it is. So, and then such a person, there is no duality for such a person who is in complete knowledge, is actually a liberated soul. Point 4. Sankhya Yoga Pratak Bala Pravadantina Panditaha Ekam Apyastita Samyag Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, Karma Yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. And 5.5 says, one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore see analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. We'll discuss this more so that you understand. We'll all will understand better. And then in 3.30, Arjuna also heard this verse from Krishna. O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me. Full knowledge of him means Krishna. Mayavadi sannyasis think like me in the sense some kind of energy. That's not true. He's talking about himself only. Full knowledge of me, who I am. Without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Just fight because I want you to fight. That's it. It's like that, it's so direct. Now, what is the aim of all the analytical study of the material world? Again, existence of the soul, to find the existence of soul. And who is the soul of this universe, of this material world? It is Vishnu. The super soul is Vishnu. But devotional service, as we know, it involves just serving the Lord, Vishnu, directly. So one process is to find the root, as we saw in the previous slide. The other one is just watering the root. So here, that is what Krishna is trying to get at. A learned person is one who knows that Sankhya and Karma Yoga both are same. Whether you try to sit and mentally speculate and try to find the super soul with lot of effort and by your own endeavor or whatever, that and Karma Yoga, they both are same because the goal is same. Ultimately, they're going to reach the root only. So that is Vishnu, none other than Krishna. So what is the purpose of philosophical research and Karma Yoga? Same thing. So a person in knowledge will understand that they both are same. But the person who is studying Sankhya, for him, he'll think, oh, I have to detach from matter. But a person who is in devotional service, who is on, who understands that Krishna is a person and he already believes, have complete faith in Krishna, for him, he is developing attachment to Krishna. So Sankhya Yoga is detachment from matter, but here it is attachment to Krishna. It's the same thing. Okay, they detach from matter and ultimately they'll reach Krishna's lotus feet only. So in the end, they are also going to get there, but it will take time for them. In many ways, they are both the same. Jnana, Sankhya, and Karma Yoga, Bhakti. Neither hates nor desires fruits, free from dualities, liberated, comes to understand that his soul, not this body, and becomes detached from matter. So this is Jnana. Now here, neither hates nor desires fruits, free from dualities, liberated, comes to understand that his soul, not this body, becomes attached to working for Krishna. So that is the main difference here. But it's the same thing. Sankhya and devotional service. In the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter, and in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same, although superficially one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are. So what is the proper understanding of renunciation now? Renunciation is complete when it is in the knowledge that everything that exists in this material creation and even in the spiritual world, everything belongs to Krishna. He is the sole proprietor. So real renunciation means understanding this. It is not like, okay, I'll run away from everything. I'll give up everything. Whatever I have, I'll just go run away. That is not true. That is not what Krishna is encouraging also. He's telling him very clearly what is renunciation. That is not what is recommending. So we should understand what is real renunciation, because we cannot give up anything. It's not even possible. Even the body is not ours. So what are we going to give up and run where? We cannot. Wherever we go, there will be Krishna there also. His energies are everywhere. So we should understand that this is all Krishna, belonging to Krishna. I should understand this body is a gift from Krishna. So I maintain the body so that I can serve him in a better way instead of using it for my own addictions and sense gratification and all. Same way, all the materials provided to me, it is all Krishna's grace. A person, if he is born in a very rich family and born among Vaishnavas and to great parents, he should think that, that is Lord's mercy. That is a chance for him to progress in his spiritual journey. So he should take it like that, make use of that environment and progress from there. So everything is coming from Krishna. So if he understands that much, if a devotee understands that much, then he's already on a liberated platform. He's already a renounced person. So he doesn't have to do anything. 5.6. Sanyasastu mahabahu dukkam aptum ayogataha yoga yukto munir brahma na chirenadi gacchati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Prabhupada was once asked, somebody asked him, how come all your devotees are so bright faced? They're so happy. Their faces are so shining all the time. So Prabhupada said, because the process is so clean, they're getting purified from inside. Right? They're performing devotional service, they're chanting all the time, they're following all the regulative principles. So they ultimately they are becoming clean from inside out. So face has to shine only. So that's what it says. A person who is actually attached to Krishna will have that kind of a face. The face is the mirror of the heart and the soul, they say, right? That is because the consciousness is getting cleaner and cleaner. So that you can see the changes outside also. Okay. And there are two classes of sannyasis, Mayavada sannyasis and who are Sankhya philosophers and Vaishnava sannyasis. And we know what they do. Mayavada sannyasis, we just saw the chart, right? So they are a little different, but then ultimately they also have to come to a stage where they understand that Lord is supreme. But their process is so difficult. There is no joy there, basically. It is very troublesome also. And they study Sharirika Bhashya given by Shankaracharya. We saw that. And Vaishnavas directly study Bhagavatam. They completely are in love with Krishna's pastimes and all the nectarian narrations given in that, in that the entire, it's such a huge volume. There are like so many stories and so many incidents between all these different devotees, and it is so beautiful to see Krishna's pastimes in that, in Bhagavatam. They just love to hear that again and again. They spend all their time studying that. But then for these people who study Sharirika Bhasya, they also take shelter of Bhagavatam, but their understanding is different. So it is very difficult for them to enjoy, relish. So it's a very tedious process for them. How to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga? One performing Nishkama Karma Yoga identifies neither with his body nor the activities that his body performs. So I'm the soul, I'm not the body. So that knowledge is there. And also all the activities perform the body, he is not identifying with that also. He knows the activities performed for the Lord, and every activity you learn in the next few chapters, we cannot say I am the doer. I'm the one who is doing this activity. That's not true. Without the Lord's mercy, nothing moves. So we'll see in there are so many more chapters where we'll get to know who is actually doing all the activities and how many elements are involved in all these activities. Working with detachment, performance of Nishkama Karma. One performing Nishkama Karma Yoga identifies neither with his body nor the activities that his body performs. By his detached actions, he is freed from the reactions of his activities. So Nishkama Karma Yoga, perfect knowledge. I am not the material body, I am soul. I am part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I want to render service to him. I will work in a detached spirit. This is Nishkama Karma Yoga. The activity is also done for Krishna. The fruits are also for Krishna. So who is a Nishkama Karma Yogi? Who are you? I am a servant of God. What work do you do? Work allotted by God. How do you do the work? I work hard with sincerity, dedication, and to my best ability. What do you do with the results? I hand it over to God. So this is Nishkama Karma Yogi. Okay. We also saw conditional duty and constitutional duty. What do you mean by constitutional duty? What is our constitutional duty? We discussed that in second chapter. So based on all that, a person who develops this kind of attitude, he knows like he is a servant of God. Whatever he is doing for God, and he has to just do it with sincerity. And what do you do with the results? Leave it to God and hand it over to God, whether it is success or failure or whatever. He is the sole enjoyer, he is the proprietor, he is everything. What are we fighting about? So with that consciousness, he does every activity. Krishna consciousness and bodily consciousness. Steadily devoted soul offers the results to me. Others are greedy for the fruits of labor, and that results in entanglement. Okay. So what is the difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness? A person in Krishna consciousness is not attached to the fruits of the activity, but a person in bodily consciousness is actually attached to the fruit of activity. He'll always worry, what if he wants some result out of it? What if that doesn't happen? What if there's anxiety? So the person who is attached to Krishna will not have any anxiety over the results of his work. The other person who wants to look for profit, some kind of profit from his activity, he will be in anxiety. So there is no peace. So a person who is entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot achieve peace. Okay, that is the secret of Krishna consciousness. How do we achieve peace now? So what is the secret of peace formula? How do we get to that state where we are really peaceful? So, and we should be peaceful and fearless. So what is the secret? How do we get there? One who works in devotion, who is pure, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Okay, there's one more verse here. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. We can understand this by Prahlad Maharaj's pastime. Prahlad Maharaj, he was totally dedicated to chanting the Lord's name, and that's what he used to do. Obviously, he took bath, he ate, he slept, everything. He was breathing, just like anybody else. He was leading a normal life, but his consciousness was such that he was always thinking about Krishna. So he was living in divine consciousness. Okay, whatever seeing, hearing, it was happening as automatically, but he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he's aloof from them. He knows, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. And he knew, Lord is the one. So his consciousness is very different. Even though he looks like anybody else, but he is actually very peaceful without any fear, because he is just thinking about the Lord all the time and is totally dependent on the Lord. And Prabhupada also, he's also a great example of, of such a Mahabhagavata, because he started this movement in New York where he was living among hippies, and those people were very dirty. They used to be drunk. They used to take drugs and whatnot. It's very difficult to imagine that, right? So, but he was untouched by that environment. He was a perfect sannyasi. And then he turned all of them into happy devotees. So we can't take that lightly, because not everyone is capable of doing that. So, we can understand his greatness from, from that. He was there with barely a few rupees in his pocket, and he survived by selling books. That's how he survived. And, he was a totally devoted devotee, very sincere. And then we cannot even imagine how he must have, in 10 years, he's built 108 temples, and then, so many books, and how he converted so many people who didn't even know the goal of their life, into perfect Vaishnavas. That's his mercy. So it's really great. By understanding all the knowledge that he taught them, They understood, what is the cycle of birth and death, what they were supposed to do, how to live a clean life, how to attain the Lord's feet. They could understand all that. So we can do the rest of the slides tomorrow because we have actually finished half the chapter. You can do that. What's the time? It's 9. I will stop the recording. We can take some questions and discuss. Tomorrow we'll continue from the next slide. We'll understand better. Okay. Hare Krishna. Stop.